This is one of the most moving, inspiring, and valuable conversations I've ever had on From Startup to Wunderbrand. Olympic silver medalist and innovation professor John K. Coyle didn't just share his stories, he offered a roadmap for a richer life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a parent, or someone just trying to support the people you love as they find their way, this episode will shift how you think about growth, success, and time itself. We talked about why trying to fix your weaknesses might be your biggest weakness, how to reclaim your time and design it around moments that matter, why life isn't built in years but in seconds of courage, clarity, and flow, and how to nurture high potential kids without crushing their spirit. This isn't just a conversation, it's a permission slip to stop grinding, start flowing, and live a life that's expansive, not exhausting. So, let's go. We've got John K. Coyle with us today, a 5 times TEDx speaker, Emmy Award-winning storyteller, an Olympic silver medalist, innovation professor, best-selling and award-winning author, degrees from Stanford and Kellogg, but most importantly, a modern storyteller. But beyond his achievements on ice, John has dedicated his career to helping people and organizations rethink how they use time, not just to get more done, but how to create richer, more expansive lives. So that's quite an intro, and it's a huge concept, time. But first of all, welcome, John.
Thank you, Nicholas. Glad to be here.
An Olympic silver medalist. Now, I've got to ask, it doesn't say gold medalist. How does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me a one-timer first loser, Nicholas.
It's very interesting because I've worked with quite a lot of captains of teams and national athletes, and I wanted to ask you about a bit about your career and how that having a silver medal from the Olympics, which is a staggering achievement, well done, how your Olympic background impacted on your interviews and your ability to grow your career. How do you think that made a difference versus not having an Olympic silver medal?
Well, there were two main insights from my Olympic career that really, I think they strongly apply to business. The first is the notion that if you're over 25 and you're trying to fix your weaknesses, that ship has sailed. I was at Stanford studying full-time as an engineering student. I still managed to get 12th place in the world in the sport of speed skating with no coach, no program, no ice. So I thought I would go from 12th to 6th to 1st in the 2 years I had to prepare for the Olympics. But the Olympic team, when I joined them, put me on a path of fixing my weaknesses, which turns out are many and varied. And I ended up going from 12th to 34th to not even making the U.S. team 2 years later, finishing 30th in the U.S. trials I had won 2 years prior. But at this point, I hearkened back to my training at Stanford Design thinking, are we solving the right problem? And I ultimately decided, maybe not. I used to be good. Something's wrong here. So I quit the team, not the sport, trained all on my own, doubled down on my strengths of anaerobic power as a sprinter. And 1 year to the day of not making the Olympic team in the exact same meet with the same people, same structure, where hundreds of seconds determined first from second. My first race back, I broke the US record by 5 seconds, the world record by over a second. And I went on to set every single US record back to back. The point here being, you got to double down on what you do well and just skip out on all the rest. It doesn't matter.
That's contrary to what most of us are told. Most of us are told, focus on your weaknesses and, your strengths will kind of take care of themselves. And I think I must have read your book, or somebody around me must have read your book and said, if you're in marketing and you're a good marketer, it's no point becoming a bad accountant, be bad at accounting. And that's something I kept in mind. And as I trained my team and brought on new folks, I really focused on those strengths. It's counterintuitive, but it also makes a lot of sense. Why do so many people struggle to focus on their strengths rather than trying to work on weaknesses?
Well, it's just operant conditioning from when we were kids, right? Like kids will quit anything. I don't know if you've got kids, but like my daughter would have quit basketball 7 seconds in. She tried, actually.
I've got 2 young boys, so...
Yeah. So a lot of times kids will quit something having no concept of whether they'll ever be good at it, because you can't be good at anything complex in a day, a week, a month, right? It takes time. And so we get trained to work through our skill gaps. And sometimes those skill gaps are actually weaknesses. And so how do you know the difference, right? Like nobody knows how to use the new operating system. Nobody knows how to figure out the new iPhone right away. Some people get it in 10 seconds. Some people take a few days. My mom takes about a month, but you get the point. We work through skill gaps and then we are successful. And so that operant conditioning starts to push us to keep trying to fix weaknesses. And the reality is I will never be a detail-oriented perfectionist. It's never going to happen. I will never be organized. I am a creative, disorganized, big picture person, and I will never be a detail-oriented I'm never going to be those people. And I don't know what your strengths are, but there's probably a weakness attached that you're not going to fix.
You talk about not being detailed, being creative, and so on. I guess a lot of people are trying to fix weaknesses for other people versus themselves because you're told you are not detailed enough. You are not. So how do you change that conversation? Because if you're working somewhere, for example, or if you're in a relationship and your wife complains that you're not detailed,
yes,
but you're good at the creative side, how do you change that conversation? How do you make it so that we can, use some of these lessons that you've got in terms of designing for strengths? And we'll go into that book a bit later.
Well, the first rule around this is if you have a true weakness and you try to fix it, if there's a strength attached to it, which there almost always is, right? Detail-oriented people are usually perfectionists. Calm people are usually unemotional. Creative people are usually disorganized. Big picture strategists people are typically bad with details. Direct and honest people are typically blunt and rude. Like each one of these has either a silver lining or whatever you call the opposite of that. Fixing a true weakness usually leads you to nowhere. When I try to fix my weaknesses in the sport, my weakness was aerobic capacity. And I worked for 2 years only on that. I went from a score of 52 to 52 to 52 on the I got no better at it. And one little silver lining I had was anaerobic power, which was 1,740 watts. That went from 1,740 to 1,460 to 1,240. So trying to fix my weaknesses, nothing got better. And I destroyed my corresponding strength. You try to be organized as a creative person, you're just going to be less creative. If you try to be detail oriented as a big picture person, you're going to be bad with strategy. Like you just don't want to do it. So to answer your question though, you need to quit. Like people ask me, should I stay in don't I have to fix my weaknesses sometimes? And the answer is no, except one tiny sliver of reality is if your job currently is to do something that's not in your area of strengths and you're going to get fired, yes, work on it until such a time you find the job that's better for you. But always be looking, never settle for a place. I mean, Thoreau called it a life of quiet desperation. That's what that feels like. And so, I'll give you an example. I quit my job 4 times in 8 years at the same company. So I didn't really quit. I sort of quit. So they hired me as a marketing operations manager or director. That's a very detail-oriented position, terrible fit. 18 months into that, I was like, this is not a fit for me. I told go to my boss, I think I'd be better fit in strategy if there's ever an opening. He's like, no, that makes sense. And by the way, bosses are typically open to you if you have an idea of where you could contribute more. They're not going to say no to that if they think it's true. So they moved you over to strategy. And I did that for 18 months. And I'm like, man, this is a lot of data and a lot of detail. I'm not sure this. I'm like, hey, I think I'd be a better fit in the creative team and advertising. And so they moved me over there and I thought I'd be doing creative stuff, but no, it's people management. Like you're managing agencies. And I'm like, oh God, this is not a great fit. So 18 months of that later, I'm like, hey, we talk about innovation. We don't even have a person, much less a team around that. Can we create one? And so they did. And I found my place. Took me 7.5 years, but I found it, or created in this case, my place. Just never settle in an environment that doesn't value your strengths and focuses on your weakness. I mean, never. Not even in a relationship, with the exception of family. You can't get rid of your family. But the last thing I'll say about that is if you have a true weakness, it's just best to admit it to everybody around you. I always tell everybody, I'm not that organized. So if you're expecting me to be high and follow through and really detail oriented about that stuff, that's probably not going to happen. And people are pretty permissive if they know where you're coming from. If people know you're direct, honest, / blunt and rude, they're going to be less offended when you tell the truth. They might actually like it. I grew to really love direct, honest, blunt, rude people because you always know where they stand.
Well, you must love working in the Netherlands then, but you've given some fantastic examples there, and it's just escaped my mind now. But that comment that that person made about not suffering in silence, but what did you call it?
Desperation.
Quiet desperation. I wonder how many people have sitting in that situation right now as a percentage of the working population. Because telling the truth, or not telling, but being honest about what your skills are is quite tough when you're early on in your career, right?
100%. Everybody's programmed to try to fit every box to be everything to everyone. And the moment you let go of that and just say, this is me, as though day life gets better. By the way, that quote goes as follows: the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them.
Yeah, it's. I think that's quite a telling quote, and I'm sure a lot of folks listening to this right now are thinking, "Well, I'm kind of in that position." And if only there was a book that could help me figure out some of these problems. I want to just mention it. Your book is Design for Strengths, applying design thinking to individual and team strengths. So I loved your example of how you were trying to fix your weaknesses in your sports and it totally tanked you. And I suppose that was a good one good way to never do that again. So talk to me about this book. I've got some of the just quick outlines here for folks, which is it's about reframing the problem, the design thinking process, identifying your specific strengths, which sometimes is tough, identifying and adapting, accepting and designing around weaknesses, maximizing team performance and real world applications. So some really good points here. Who is the right person for this book and who have you written it for really?
It's really probably for that mass of men, which I think is probably 80% of people. You're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, right? So I'm speaking now directly to 80% of the people listening to this. Okay. You got safety and security. You got food and shelter. You got love and belonging. You got the esteem of your peers. You have worked really hard, developed expertise, focused on what's going to make you successful. And for most people, they stand on the fourth of 5 steps. And it's like a little tiny, like you're windmilling, like this is it.
And that's self-actualization, yeah?
Have no self-actualization because they weren't born to do that thing. Right. Some people were born to be lawyers and they just go right up to self-actualization and they're done. But for the mass of men, I think we get to a place where we've worked so hard that we're not willing to let go. And for most people, myself included, and I'll give the example, the way to self-actualization is not a step up. It's actually a tumble off the edge all the way back to the start. To start your podcast, to build a new business, to become an entrepreneur, become a coach, to do whatever it is you were born to do, you're going to start all over. You don't know if the money's coming. You don't know if you're going to. So I did all this 11 years ago, 10 and a half years ago. I had a corporate job paying great money with tons of stock options. And I was windmilling with the esteem of my peers, but no actualization, working 60 hours a week and not loving it at all. So I quit. I quit it and my relationship the same day. So I declared divorce and quit my job because, burn all bridges a ton at once. And I just decided I was going to start a speaking business because I did one TED talk and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I can do this. So I couch surfed for 3 months. I lived on a friend's couch and I started this business. And I couldn't tell you, my level of happiness has no magnitude that literally records where I was to where I am now. It's magnitudes of order difference because I have complete freedom. I have time freedom. I have financial freedom. I have temporal freedom. I have freedom to travel where I want. I get to do whatever I want all the time. And I get paid lots of money to do it.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a fantastic progression. Let's go back into the book. And it's what I like in the title. Again, it just says Design for Strengths, because we, again, focus just on weaknesses. Have you got any off the top of your head success stories of folks who have read this book and given you some personal feedback? And it doesn't have to be that they've climbed Kilimanjaro or made $1 million or $10 million, but that this book has made an impact on somebody.
For sure. So one example it was really funny. So I speak to large audiences, by and large, sometimes smaller, but if it's over 50 people, generally speaking, people don't raise their hand and interrupt, right? There's no time for that. But I'm like with 200 people in this, I'm midway through this and this lady raises her hand. She's like, I don't think this is going to work for me. I didn't even fall on her, keep in mind. And I'm like, let's go with direct, honest, blunt, rude. She's like, how'd you know? I'm like, just took a guess. And she's like, I don't think it's going to work for me. I'm like, what's your job? And she said, I am a religious school teacher in Minneapolis, Minnesota for grade school kids. And I smiled up. I'm like, no, that for those that don't know, like, this is the nicest State of the Union. Like, People are super overly nice. They are not direct, honest, blunt, rude ever to anybody, whatever. And it's a religious school and it's kids. Like, I was like, no, I don't think that is not the right environment for somebody with your strengths, and you're not going to fix it. So you're just going to be constantly ostracized. Like, I don't know, boarding school in upstate New York. Kids are tough. They expect to be pushed. The parents are pushy. You can push back on them. Like, this is the way that people live in New York. So she did. She quit her job and she moved to New York, and she let me know a couple years later that she just loved being loved for her honesty and her truth and all of that.
That goes to people being seen, and I think a lot of challenges that folks have right now, again, it's that honesty thing. It must have, I mean, you mentioned that she was blunt and straightforward, etc. But she made the conscious effort, because I think she was obviously struggling to mention that particular point. And I think a lot of people never get to that. How do you think you can spark that, or how do you spark that conversation of people actually rethinking their entire life? And you mentioned tumbling down all the way down Maslow's hierarchy. What would be a good starting point for people to start focusing on their weaknesses? I mean, starting focusing on their strengths, like that woman.
I think two things, and I'll give a quick story to support one of them. You have to know what your strengths are. So I'll loan everybody my favorite cocktail hour question, which is, what are you best at? And it's 80% of people that literally, like, it's deer in the headlights for a minute. And then they make something up and it's super broad and it's not specific. Communication. Okay, that's way too broad. Like, to whom about what? Like, storytelling, narrating, data, big audience, medium audience, small audience, coaching, challenging, like so many types of communication. You got to know what your strengths are. If you don't know what your superpower is, you don't get to put on the cape. So that's part one. Part two is, if you figured it out, what makes you feel good? What makes you feel full? What makes time stop? Like, once you know what it is, start having conversations with the person above you, your leader, your boss, saying, this is the kind of work I need to be doing longer term. I can do this for a while, but that's where I need to move. And 90% of bosses are like, from my experience, are like, yeah, of course I want to help you. My job is to help you. Of course I want you to contribute more, not less. Of course I want you to stay with the company and not leave. Like, so 90% of bosses will be open to that. You're going to have a bad boss, 1 out of 10, it's going to happen. The other thing that you can do is just up and quit. I have a slide when I speak that says, my advice to you is, if at first you don't succeed, quit. And then it scrolls off and I says, thank you. And I pretend but here's the real advice is, if you're not seeing progress, I think there's around a 2-year rule. So no, don't quit your job after 3 weeks, 6 months, unless it's so terrible that you just literally want to chew your arm off. But if you're struggling, you're not seeing progress for 2 months, that's okay. If it's 2 years in, it's time to quit, or at least ask for another job and do something different.
So it's about having that tough conversation with yourself, number one, because a lot of people struggle actually writing that one-liner about yourself. And this is and I know it's not 80%, it's 90% of people, 95% of people, maybe higher, that don't actually know what their strengths are. So I think that's a good starting point. Now, I just want to move to a separate topic now, which is this whole discussion around time. And I'm going to give you a little scenario now, and then we'll talk a little bit about time. With AI, we are now probably going to be moving to a 3-day week at some stage. So that's going to be the likely case for those in the services industry. Our perception of time is going to have to change. And I'll give you a nice example. Most people can't relax. If you give them 3 days, they're going to be, what am I going to do for the rest of it? And I want to ask, have you given any thought to how time was viewed in the past versus now? For example, there were wars and soldiers used to stop before the harvest, get the harvest in, and then only go and fight. Or there was winter, or there was spring or summer. The perception of time for them is completely different to the perception of time today. Do you think we can use some of that we can obviously change our perception of time with AI? This is a roundabout way of going about it. But with AI, how tough is it going to be for people to change their perception of time and the value that they get in the hours in the day that they have?
So great question, multiple facets here. The first is, yes, for a large part of human history, time was really cyclical and it was seasonal, right? And so, there's people for millennia that didn't even count years, right? Everything was just, what season is it? And then you do whatever that activity is. Then we moved really in the mid 1800s to clock time as being the arbiter of modern life because the trains had to show up to the same place at the same time or not much to each other. Because before that, there were literally thousands, if not millions of time zones because it was all set by the hourglass or the sundial from where you were. But, you move a couple latitudes over and it's a couple minutes different. And so with clock time, we've now been enslaved into this completely misplaced belief that clock time is real. I would liken it to the Flat Earth Society. We have all of this evidence. They had all this evidence, crescent shape of the moon, ships disappearing over the horizon. Like they had all this evidence that the world was spherical, but nobody believed it till 300 BC. Mainland China didn't get there till the 1800s. We know that time is not linear the way we experience it. If you said, I can't believe that was last week, it felt like yesterday. I can't believe that was yesterday, it felt like last week. Can't believe it was last year, it felt like last week. You sit down to a long, boring meeting, and after what seems like 3 hours, 20 minutes has gone by. You sit down with a great guy like Nicholas, and you look at your watch after what seems like 20 minutes and 3 hours has gone by. I'm going to predict this podcast goes over, by the way. Once you get rolling, right, this is the nature of the human experience with time. And so what I think is going to happen with AI and is already happening, starting to happen, this is what I teach, everything I teach, is Kairos time is going to reemerge. So the Greeks had two words for time, chronos, clock time, the way we use it, and Kairos, human time, and the deeper meaning is when everything happens at once and the trajectory is reset. And it comes from the archer releasing the arrow. And so you think about it, when you think through your life, it turns out that almost everything important that's happened in your life has happened in a moment. You said yes or you didn't. You asked the girl out or you didn't. You got off the exit or you didn't. You avoided the car crash or you didn't. You took the job across town or you didn't. All these were moments set in weeks, months, and years, but moments in those periods. Same with athletics, right? You got the gold, silver, bronze, or you didn't, all tiny increments. The point being that with the pace and acceleration and meaning and purpose that AI can give to a moment, we're going to have more moments, less mundane time. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that stretching of time, I mean, I think artists do it quite well. So you'll have musicians, for example, Brahms or these guys or Beethoven would do a symphony over years, 3 years, and then it's done. And I feel that especially in the Western world, we are very focused on quarters, and this is why I think a lot of businesses are not successful. They are thinking very short term, very, in a very small-minded way, whereas time does sort of, we should give projects and activities a little bit more time. And especially with AI now, I think the opportunity for us to sit back, be silent, and, contemplate our navel should come back, because I think we're so busy. I teach digital marketing and it's just constant. There's new products every day. I get new updates on all of the AI programs I'm using. They've added this new thing. I've got to learn this new thing. It's exhausting. You never get to take a breath. And I'm hoping that at some stage we are going to, and maybe this will just be of the wealthy classes, where you again have that time to just waft through life, have creative explosions every now and then, continue on different seasons. But I think for the majority of folks, it's still going to be a horrible drudge.
Yes. Unfortunately, the way that we experience time in the now, in the present, and by the way, you won't hear this anywhere else. Almost everybody that talks about time has it exactly perfectly wrong. So when things are exactly perfectly wrong, they're telling you 100% opposite of the reality. So what everybody's telling you, be in the present, be in the now. And that's important in one way, but the way you experience time in the now doesn't matter. Or actually, the way you experience time in the now is often or usually even inversely proportional to how you remember it. And my argument is only remembered time counts, at least when it comes to your perception of time. So for example, long, boring, tedious day of typing numbers into a spreadsheet. You got to do it all day. That feels like forever in the now. And you might assume the way to live a long, full life is to do more of that. No, wrong. Because tomorrow you won't remember that. And the next week and next year, that disappears to nothing. First day of vacation, first day at a new job, anything's exciting, new, somewhat risky, right? It zooms by in the present, just like this podcast. But in memory, there's going to be a lot of information gathered, stored, and recalled that you can parse through. And then that creates a sense of fullness when it comes to time. So the faster the time goes in the present, more often than not, that's a great sign you're in the flow state, you're in your area of strengths, you're doing the right things for your life. And when it feels tedious and painful, you got to get out of that.
Keeping on the subject of time, and since you have been an Olympian, How long were your races typically? So you said speed skating. So how far, how long, how many minutes is that race typically?
Well, the shortest event, which is my favorite, 500, lasts about 40 seconds. The 2002 Olympics, the 500 meter, first to 10th, the difference was 33 100ths. 10 people in that space after a lifetime of training.
Yeah,
So
that's
small
crazy.
increments can really matter in sports. And as it turns out, that insight applies to real life as well.
Those 40 seconds, tell me if you can explain, what did those 40 seconds feel like? Did it feel like 40 seconds? Did it feel like 1 hour? Was it was it an instant? Did it feel like a lifetime? Just maybe talk me through one of your favorite races or a race that you remember quite vividly.
Yeah, I can remember that first race back when I returned after training on my own. I remember every stroke from that race, every single one. I remember when the bell rang with one to go. I can remember 6 laps in when I caught the guy that I was chasing. I can remember a really good left stroke in one of the corners where the ice just chipped at the last second and the shards through the air. Like, the thing about when you're in the flow state, when you're in the zone, when you're in the peak performance state, all of your mental clocks turn off. And so this is why people say time flew, time stopped, both felt like forever, felt like nothing, both, because you didn't measure anything. So we don't have any way to describe time in any time absent state. And so we get confused on how to describe it. So it's both infinite and infinitesimal at the same time. And that's the beauty of the flow state. When time isn't measured, it's all things, but that's when you know you're doing the right thing, the thing you're best at. You're living your strengths. You're in the flow state. Do more of whatever that is and don't do the other stuff.
And you'll find some of those insights in your book, which is Design for Strengths. I've got one last question. This is a personal question. I've got my eldest son, he's 12 now, and he's going to be training for the Winter Olympics as well, but for cross country. And he's still, the reason he'll probably get into the Olympics is because we live in Norway. He does training here, but he'll probably do it under the South African Winter Olympics team, which means there's two of them. But, and you've got kids as well. In terms of I don't know how to deal with an Olympian or potential. This is obviously me as a parent speaking, but the potential is there. What guidance would you give to somebody? Imagine you were a 12-year-old and you had potential. How would you want your parents to talk to you so that you don't overburden them or put too much stress and pressure on them? Make sure that they are successful. I know that's a small question, but there you go.
Great question. So right around 12, my parents did this amazing thing that most parents do. Up until then, they're kind of your coach. And then at some point, you're going to get a real, like, professional coach. My parents made this great switch from providing support and constructive criticism to unilateral support all the time. And the best advice I can give you to give your son, I'm going to tell you a quick story, is when they fail, and they will, and the more successful they are younger, the worse it's going to feel when they get beat. In fact, most of the best athletes, in my experience, most of the best 10 to 14-year-old athletes quit between 15 and 16 because they've never been beat before and they have no idea how to handle it. And the belief that happens in their brain is, I'm not good enough. And the parenting, the one piece of advice I give you, which I didn't hear directly in these words, but my parents embodied it, was, you weren't good enough today, but tomorrow or next week or a year from now, with the right prep and training and focus, you will get there. The other piece of advice I would give is, don't try to fix their true weaknesses. As a peer of mine, he was a fencer, and he made it, I believe it was the 88 games, he got a bronze medal. But at the same time, he earned the nickname in French. I don't know what it is in French, but in English, it's the pissing dog, because the way he held his sword in his leg was awkward and it looked like a dog, with the fire hydrant. And so they fixed it. They fixed his stance to not be the pissing dog. And he came back for the next Olympics and got 4th. So then he was like, screw that. I'm not doing that anymore. He went back to his old stance and he came back and won a silver medal. So point being, you can't fix true weaknesses. You shouldn't even try. Double down on what they do great. The rest will take care of itself.
Well, some great insights. Thank you. And I will apply those. I'm already beyond my skills when it comes to the skiing. And he's also excellent at baseball. So I've also handed him off to somebody else now because I'll just ruin him from this stage. So John, this has been fantastic. Where can I send folks to read up a bit more about you? I mean, we've just touched on a couple of interesting things here. Time, and Design for Strengths. Where can folks get this book, and where can they see some of your talks and some of your other free resources that I see you have?
Everything's just at my website, johnkcoyle.com. You can find everything there, blogs, books, videos. Everything's right there. And please reach out if you want to chat with me. I'm highly available. I have lots of time.
Great. Well, I'll put all of those links in the description so folks can find it. And John, what a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Nicholas, thank you.
I really do appreciate your comments. So why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no. That's KUHNE.no for more information.